And we're live. Welcome, everyone. And this is so exciting. Today we have Yael Kaner, who is the most incredible person you should all know. She's going to introduce herself, but today I want to tell you because, as you know, we always focus on marriage and how we can improve our marriage. And today we're really focusing on how ADHD affects your marriage and what you can do to help reverse that and affect it in the right way. So, Yael, introduce yourself. Tell us why we have to all love you.
Well, I don't know about that, but I live in Ma'ale Adumim. I've been here in the country in Israel for 9 years already. I'm the mother of 7 children and the grandmother of almost 25 grandchildren. So, and I am a life coach, and I'm fascinated by ADHD. That is my thing. Confidence, issues around ADHD. So let's get into it.
Yes.
Everybody knows somebody. 60% of marriages, they say, in America, the latest statistic is are affected by ADHD. Everybody remember, yes.
COVID. I thought you were going to say we're affected by COVID. I'm like, oh, more than 60%. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And actually, COVID has really brought out and brought to the forefront some of these issues that women who are experiencing ADHD symptoms and have that cluster of characteristics. So ADHD and COVID really go hands in hand, and it's bringing more and more women into pain and a feeling of failure and a feeling that they're just not coping, and having to, be chief cook and bottle washer for the whole family and trying to work.
Yes, and that's why we're talking about this, because A, it is normal to feel this way. B, we want to be here with you and tell you what to do about it and how to, get over the hump. Because one of the things that I was saying about COVID, and by the way, hi, Judith. Judith is here, which I'm very excited about. Now on Thursday, we're having Cheryl, and she is going to talk about, the effects of COVID more deeply. So we're going to talk about that on Thursday. Make sure you come. But right now, it really is something that is so important, because if you don't know that you're going to pass it, if you don't believe that, let's say it this way, if you believe that this is going to last forever, then we're all really, we're all going to just be like, But the thing that holds me together is knowing that we're going to get through it. We're going to get through it. We're going to look back. We're going to laugh. We're going to be all like, ha, 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 I survived that thing. And yes, it's going to be, we look back and say, oh my gosh, that was so hard. That was so impactful in my life, or whatever it was. But at least we'll be able to look back at it. We'll get through it. So that's really important. Go ahead. So tell us more about, I won't interrupt you so much. I'll be nice.
So I'll let you in on a secret. I was that girl. Okay. I was that girl who had the messy locker, who could pull hamburgers out of her purse because she had forgotten they were in there from the drive-through. Everything was a balagan. I was super pregnant with my 3rd child, and the president of the congregation's wife came over and she said, oh no, I wasn't pregnant. She came over and she said, is your house always like this, or are you pregnant? Yeah, I forgot about that. So, yeah. So I had trouble remembering. I actually graduated high school at 16 because I figured that I'm going to run fast enough where they're not going to be able to catch me. So I went into college at 16. But what I didn't have were study skills, because I wasn't in high school long enough to gather them. And even if I had, once I walked out of a classroom, everything that I had done pretty much left me. So I had trouble remembering when my papers were due, and, making an executive plan for how I was going to get my tests done and these kinds of things, and always administrative stuff. And Hashem sent me angels all the way through, roommates who helped me, figure out hard things, like trying to buy pantyhose in the right size, because it was just all overwhelming. I'd go into the grocery store, and it would just be overwhelming. I had a lot of those things going on, and it also carried over into adulthood. By the time I was an adult, the interrupting that I did as a young girl became like sort of like a not a conversation stopper, but ADHD women sometimes have just this flight of ideas and all these things, and we're creative and we're smart, and it's all going on in your head. And
Right.
whereas ADHD boys, they're running around in circles like my son. So at any rate, always being told when you're a young girl to a young woman to a young wife, a young Rebbetzin, you're just way too much. You are just too much. Code for, whoa, you are overwhelming me.
Right.
So I had to learn how to, take that down a notch.
Yeah, isn't that
Basically, an
sad
age,
though? Because then you end up not shining as brightly as you really should. I mean, isn't that there's a loss.
it's a delicate balance. There's a self-awareness that I have now that
Right.
because I was only diagnosed at 61. Usually women are diagnosed when their child goes for remedial testing and these kinds of things for school. Well, that never happened with me. So my son just had too many things in his pecula that nobody even looked up to see what was going on with me. Certainly not. Yeah. So just that constant feeling that you're dragging around, that you're not meeting your potential, and it can really like knock down your self-esteem and make you feel really lousy about yourself. So I'm seeing a lot of this. I'm sort of a listening lurker. Participant in a lot of Facebook groups, particularly mommy groups, because that's who I have compassion and love for. And I just want to reach back and tell all these women, it's going to get better. There are strategies, there are things you can do, there are things you can learn that will make all this better.
Yes.
So just the fact of feeling on a normal, let alone COVID, a normal day that you can't hold it all together, that you feel like, I used to say, I have all these balls in the air, drop one, which one? They're all glass, you know?
And
So, so it was rough, and it
by the
makes
way,
you feel like,
we have Judith here who says she was diagnosed at 51. So this is resonating, which is really interesting. Yeah.
so how was I diagnosed? I went to coaching school recently. I went to the Jerusalem Coaching Institute, and I took my Rebbetzin skills, and I used to have a business called Bubby on Call. And Bubby on Call went all across the country. People could travel to China for 12 to 15 days and leave me with all the kids, with all the responsibilities, because at 61 or 60 at that time, I have the skills to be able to manage the family because I've learned and tried and true tested all of these strategies that we're going to talk about. So so I'm a responsible person to leave in the house. So people would go away to Bulgaria and all that kind of stuff. Well, COVID came along and I wasn't able to travel anymore. And it wasn't safe, because I mean, we're 8 months into this, but 8 months ago, I was busy. My schedule was full. I was happy, making, a nice living, comfortable. Baruch Hashem. So when this all happened, about the same time in March, my middle biological son, because I have 7 kids, but the middle one, he committed suicide. So I really went into myself for a month, and I thought, what can I do to take the pain out of this world? I listened to all of these, women, and I hear their pain, and I want to do something. I have Rebbetzin skills from 24 years in the rabbit. So, how do I deploy them to help? So I went to the Jerusalem Coaching Institute over in Baca and studied. We had 5 months. We started in person, and then we ended up doing it all on Zoom, which was that was okay. But in the course of being coached, because as you become a coach, you are being coached.
Right.
I discovered I had ADHD. And when I found out, I was in the classroom, and Dr. Leah Ganesh said to me, Yael, you might want to take the self-test. So there's this self-test on the Attitude magazine website, ADD Etude. You can spell it.
Okay.
If you have a problem, call me. I'll tell you where to get it. But it's 20 questions, and those 20 questions were so revealing. Oh my goodness. I was shaken to the core. I called my best friend. I said, "Did you know I had ADHD?" And they're like, "Yeah, we did." So, so yeah, I guess it was apparent, like until my self-awareness arrived at that moment. And that's why this is so interesting to me, because there are tons of women out there who are having the same experiences that I had. And once you know what you're dealing with, you may not fit the whole label, you may not fit the whole menu of what makes up an ADD diagnosis, but
Right.
there are things you can do once you have the awareness.
And that's
So,
why we're here, because I love
yes.
practical ways to fix what you want to fix. It's so fun that in any situation in life, and this is something that I really want everybody that is here and listening, either live or on the replay, to know that in any situation, if you are suffering, if you feel stuck, if you feel closed up, that means there is something you need to do. It's not here to just like close you up and make you feel suffocated. It's here to push you out of your comfort zone, to tell you you need to learn something. You need to get out there. You need to find an answer, because there are so many resources, so many resources. There are so many people who are just waiting to help you, just the amount of coaches, and each one has such a specific set skill set that they're here to help you with. It is so incredible, but you have to be the one to want it. You have to be the one to find out for yourself that you need it, and you choose it. So these types of things, when you feel like that, it's a wake-up call. It's just like, hello, wake up, you're falling asleep on the job, you need to get somewhere, you need to do something. And that's why it's so
So
important.
once we judge that somebody is coachable, then we can move from there. Once their awareness is where it needs to be, then we can move from there. So, but you shouldn't ever just go around in a fog of shame. Every third person in our community seems to be a coach, which I'm proud of because it gives us lots of choices. And
also, I think that it's what's so beautiful about that community is that we're there for each other, so don't fool yourselves, people. Coaches need coaches, and
exactly.
we're a network of friends, we're a network of coaches, we're a network of entrepreneurs. Everybody's doing their own thing, and each one of us has their own specialty, their own spark, their own bubbliness, or introvertness, or very quietness, or whatever type of person you are, that if you find someone that you click with, you can then tap on them and say, I need help. And I get coaching all the time. I do coaching for others. It is it's a different place. Once you find friends like that, then you're no longer alone, which is really amazing. So go out there and make yourself some coach friends.
Exactly. Yeah. So when somebody comes to me, my last client, without giving any details or the sex or whatever, my last client came to me, and that person was having trouble setting and meeting goals. Well, that happens to be the thing that is like, as the young people say today, that my jam. So that is what I love. So we tended to work on different aspects of that person's ADHD issues. So it had to do with like hyper focus, which I was familiar with, because have you ever fallen down that rabbit hole of whatever you're interested in, and you just keep spiraling down until you realize that you've missed a good chunk of time? So that is one of the hallmarks of ADHD. So when you see somebody who has hyperfocus, how would you tell them to pull back the lens?
I don't know. I need to see the specific thing. It's very hard for me to help with something general, because I like getting the full picture and getting to the core of the issue. If somebody is going down rabbit holes, sometimes it's from running away from reality. So I try to find the root before I give any advice. But yeah, go ahead. What was the idea that you came up with?
No, it's just that I am familiar with it because if you've ever dated an ADHD person, um, when they're dating you, they are so focused in on you. And then once you get married, it's like you're an old toy. So,
Oh,
um, yeah, yeah, but it's okay. It's okay. Um, but the other beauty of hyperfocus is, for example, my husband, my second husband, my current husband, last husband, as I call him, he has ADHD, but he can focus. He can be in a room full of people. There can be a party going on in the living room, and he's translating and he's sticking to his document, and he's got that hyper focus, which is beautiful. Now, in terms of distractedness, that's also a hallmark. Forgetfulness. So I tend to use a lot of alarms, a lot of Google Calendar. I, you know, I go by my Google Calendar. It reminds me about everything, and I put everything in it. So, do you have a strategy on anything? Okay.
I do. I also like the Google Calendar, also because it syncs with my phone and my husband, so he can see what's going on. Lilach here. Hi, Lilach. This is my sister. Says hyperfocus can be a superpower. Yes. By the way,
Yes.
all these are superpowers. ADHD is not a negative thing. Might be different than what people expect of you, and that's why it is difficult to carry. But it is actually, most people who are getting a lot of things done in this world are doing it because they're able to, because they have these superpowers. They have the abilities to do things that are not like everyone else. And so all these things are superpowers. I think that's one of the things that is really important to tap into, that there's nothing wrong with there is nothing wrong with you.
No.
That is something I wanted you to know. There is nothing wrong with any of you, because it's so painful to think that you're the one who's broken and everyone else is doing it right. No, forget about it.
Myth. Total myth.
Nicole,
now, one of the things that
I love Nicole.
You see people. I don't see people.
Oh, you have a little tab that says comments on the side. You could probably see it. Nicole says, I have super patience. And I love that because it's so true. That's awesome. Okay, so I'll keep reading them to you because you can't see them. But go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that I use is I take out my Google Calendar in the morning and I have Brendan Burchart's High Performance Planner. It's an undated planner, which is fantastic. And what you do is you have to, assign a value to numbers or words, and that you set your intention for the day. And then at the end of the night, you score yourself and you see how you did for that day. And I find that very reinforcing for me. And also it spreads out my day so that I can see that I'm not going to live in overwhelm.
Yes.
In terms of
a lot of people find that bullet journaling really helps them, especially if they're artists and they like to do things on their own and they don't like to buy existing solutions. I found that the actual bullet journaling concept of having everything in one book was very overwhelming for me. But if I just took one page and made it my bullet journaling, sort of everything all in one, I have the little bullets on top where I keep track of if I davened or not. And then on bottom, I write certain things that have to happen. Overall, it just gives me a really nice, neat one pager of the whole month. And that's something that I found for myself that works. So it's really important to find what works for you. Sometimes the entire system won't work, but there's parts of it that you can take and fix.
Well, Brendan encourages you to pick 3 things in a day that are the most important things that need to get done. And that to me keeps my overwhelm down. As far as when I am in a flow, what, you have something?
I do one. I was just listening to someone who said,
Ah,
pick one thing that has to happen today. And I feel like that's very good advice for me. If I just one thing, a million things can happen, but if this one thing gets done, I feel really proud of myself. It feels really nice to have just one thing every day. Imagine you actually get 30 things done in a month. Like,
that's
wow.
fantastic. It's also a stage thing because I don't have my small people home with me, and you
Yes.
do. So that it's a
I
stage of
feel,
life, and it's also recognizing where you are in the spectrum of life. Um,
yeah.
Also, my husband and I both use the Pomodoro so that when we're in a flow, you set the Pomodoro timer, you work as hard as you can, you leave your phone on airplane mode. Pomodoro method is short bursts of work, whether it's an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, 45 minutes, however long you choose. But to
Okay.
intensely do that work and leave your phone on airplane mode, and that helps. Now, one of the things that I learned in coaching, which I love to share with my clients, is something called creative anticipation, which is called, it's also a pies, where you come up with something every single day that you have to anticipate, that you look forward to, that will balance your life. So it's physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. And so you try to meet all those needs every day. And you try to pick things that are for you, things that will make you feel good and supported. So that's what we try to do. Um,
So Lilach says that she does 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes of rest, and that's what works for
that's
her.
that's fantastic. That is fantastic.
Wow, and really
Okay.
good. I love these comments, you guys. Thank you. Great attitude. One thing done, 30 things done each month. Yes, it makes me very happy when I could think of it that way.
Okay.
Go
Um,
ahead. What were
do
you
you
saying
do
about?
you have any Do you have anything more that you want to say about ADD in marriage? Because I can tell you a few things that work in my case, because I am living with a man who does have ADHD. When I want to tell him something, I make sure to touch him, because I can do that at this stage of life. So I touch him and make sure that we're connecting. Then I try and get his eye contact. Sometimes I'll just have to like be really blunt and go eye contact, and just make sure he's looking. And I remind him without nagging, different, and obviously sharing my calendar. And that's pretty much, with him, what works for us. Other people have other issues, and ADHD extends, and it looks different in all different kinds of things. I mean, you have people that in intimacy situations can't concentrate, or the medication that they're on compromises, performance, or things like this. These are all different issues, and you take it up with the people that you need to.
Right.
So,
So, so yeah, I think that one of the things that you were saying, it all comes down to communication. And if you're, just like the five love languages, if you're communicating in a different language and you're each talking and listening, but not to the same thing, it's going to cause a lot of friction that's really not your fault. And it really has nothing to do with you. It just has to do with the fact that you haven't figured out what language is being spoken. So the fact that you said I need to, touch my husband and get his eye contact, that is something that from then on, from that moment that you figure that out, you no longer feel like you no longer feel like you're just talking in his own world. You're not, it's like, okay, it has nothing to do with me. It just has to do with the fact that I need to get his attention. I need to create a channel of communication. I actually have to press play before I talk, there's certain things that are just, we think they're us. We think that we're the problem. And in reality, we are not. There is no problem. The problem is that we're not stopping everything to really just find solutions. We're so focused on this is one of my favorite things, like, what you focus on grows. And the more you focus on the problem, the more the problem will grow. Well, guess what? If you focus on finding a solution, that will grow. And suddenly the solutions will start growing. You'll start finding. And people tell me, I don't have money to get this, or I don't this. It has nothing to do with it. It has to do with your will, your Rebbetzin. You have to want to find solutions, and then you're going to start finding them, because that's how Hashem is. The second you understand that this is what you want, then it starts coming, and you'll find a freebie, and you'll find here and there and a free course, and I don't know what. You'll find a mentor. You'll find all these different things because you are ready. And that's what's amazing. Nicole says, we haven't noticed how exactly we need to proceed to interact. Not sure if I understand.
I will tell you something that I believe very strongly, which is I wrote out a mission statement for my life.
Wait,
and
move back here.
Sorry about that. Thank you. I feel like we're having coffee together, you know. I don't think so comfortable.
Okay, we can have tea.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So what I was going to say is I wrote for myself a very specific, when I was going into coaching about 2 weeks before I started into the end of the program, we were asked to write a mission statement, and I wrote it down. And I will tell you, and you're going to think this is the weirdest woo-woo thing, every single thing has come true on the list. Every intention that I set out for has happened. Amazing. So as far as ADD in your marriage, I would also encourage you to journal about it, to write out what your intention for what you want with the person that you're with. What kind of relationship? Make it so real and so compelling and so visual that you can't mistake it. It's not anyone else's vision but yours. And if you can have that, I have it inside my closet, inside the bathroom. I have it on the door as I'm leaving my office, and also over my desk. And every single thing.
I went to Leah Aroni's retreat a year and a half ago, and we did a vision board. It was Elul right before the new year. We had to do a vision board. I finished that whole vision board by Hanukkah. It was not normal. Things I did not even believe were going to happen, and I just put them up there just for fun. It was crazy, but I totally believe it. The second you say, this is my goal, then you commit to it, and then you have no other choice but to just say, okay, how do I do it? But I think the fear is committing to yourself. And that's huge, because it goes deep down into that worthiness of, am I even worthy of reaching those goals? Am I even, forget about capable, but like, do I even deserve to have all those things? Or those are things that are really deep. And those are things that we have to get to in order to really clear that out. Because yes, the answer is yes, you deserve it. Hashem loves you. He put you here so that you can have it.
He's your father. He wants the best for you. So ask big. That's the lesson I learned from this year. I mean, I've had tremendous sadness this year, but I also learned, I said to my husband, the number that I put on my mission statement, I should have asked bigger. It was amazing.
Okay, you can always adjust. I let.
Thanks, Mom. Mom, let's. No, seriously. I am going to have to rejigger it, because I need to dream bigger dreams and bigger manifestations.
We get steps. We get this far, then we get to the next step. So we have here Judith, who says communication, she finds, is the hardest thing, because she has to focus so hard during small talk, which she doesn't like, but she can go deep dive into a deep conversation right away, and she loves it. So, by the way, I'm the same way. I think that's why me and Judith became such good friends. She also came to the retreat, and that's how we met. I think that I am very similar in that I really love the deep conversations, and that's why I am a coach. I will go straight to the core. I will find what's the issue, and I will go straight there. And, you talk to me about blah, 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 and I'm like, because it really doesn't feel like we're getting anywhere. And I totally hear that. What do you think about that? Do you have anything to say to Judith?
You have to be authentically yourself. When I was a young Rebbetzin and I would be in a room full of 200 people, diplomats and important people, and they're people who are used to being listened to, but I couldn't focus. These dinner parties and these things were too hard for me. But what I loved was getting away with people and sitting down. So, Judith, you will find your tribe. You have to
Yeah.
just look for the women that want realness, authenticity, and want to share part of their soul. Now, I'll tell you something I learned this week. I agreed to do for mental health first aid Israel. I agreed to talk about losing my son to suicide and bipolar in March. And a lot of people said to me, "Oh, be careful. You have other sons who are rabbis. You have to be so careful. People are going to be very judgy." Let me tell you, I got on. I told the exact truth from my perspective, what I saw, what I did, what I felt, and I got 110% of love and support and amazingness back from people, because there's a Hasidic adage that my husband taught me when I joined his tribe of the Lubavitchers here. He said, what comes from the heart goes to the heart. And so I spoke very, very honestly this past week. Online on Facebook, which was, I was scared to do it because I didn't know how it was going to be received. But I can tell you that almost 6,000 people have watched some portion of this video, and I've received hundreds of phone calls from people, from families. I've been in touch with all kinds of other organizations that are adjuncts to this field that can help more specifically. We have done amazing things this week in reaching out and destigmatizing mental illness. And why did I at first I wasn't going to talk about being an ADHD woman, but I can tell you that it didn't feel honest. And so I'm telling you that I've struggled with these things. I have strategies. I love these women that come to me, and I can help them because I've been on that march,
Yes. I want to also say to Judith that when finding a husband, you don't have to find someone who's not deep and into talking about, superficial things. You are going to make it a priority. It's one of your values that you should be able to have deep, meaningful conversations. And I believe that you're going to be able to reach that, because once, like Lilach says, once you pick it and it's very specific, it's no longer nebulous, and it's measurable. So once you say, this is a value that that is important to me, and I'm aware of the need, then I'm going to be able to find it. It's really when for some reason, and I love this, I can't understand. Like, it's funny because I'm like, here, I help improve your marriage, and I'm giving you all this marriage advice. And what do I get? A bunch of singles, like, coming from all over, just like, I want to listen to you, because I feel like when you're dating, you're not dating just to get married. You're dating to have a good marriage. So it makes sense to them that when they are, in that situation where they're learning about marriage, you want to learn from someone who's helping marriages. And I totally appreciate that. And I love those followers, and I appreciate them. And I think that one of the most important things is they tell you not to be picky. Oh, you're so picky. You're so picky. No, be picky. Be picky. Because if you don't know what's important to you, then nobody's going to know what's important to you. And then you're just going to be like, okay, I don't know. Yeah, whatever. No, you want to be focused. And that's
I can tell you.
Yes.
I can tell you that after being married 24 years, and then 16 years ago, somebody called me up and said, I have a man for you. And I said, sure you do. And I thought it was ludicrous. I went out with him on the first date, and his hyper focus was that we could sit in the middle of David Chu's, which is a Chinese restaurant, crowded like crazy in Baltimore. And he was having these really amazing conversations because his kids were calling, because the kids were suspicious. Where's Abba? And Abba was on a date. So I'm watching him talk to each one of these children, and he's completely absorbed. And I said, I got to have that. I want that. But I must tell you, before I met him, I had made a list of what was important, and I could have written like an ad from that list, and he had everything on that list and more. And Judith, I have such amuna that this will come to pass. So
Yes.
fear not, my girl.
Yes. Yes.
Hashem hears you, and you have all of these little angels looking around for you. So if we
Judith
know what you're looking for.
Judith goes to the Kotel and to all these different places, and she davens for everyone. She posts on Facebook, who can I daven for? And people will just send her names. It is so beautiful. And she really is that type of person who deserves all the best in the world. And it's just, oh, I love you.
Exactly. I want to be at your chuppah.
Oh, yes. So. Oh, there's going to be so many people there. I hope after. I hope we can come.
Exactly. If not, it'll be on Zoom, but okay, we're going to do this.
Do it outside in the forest, and we'll all come.
So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows Attitude Magazine. If you're looking for a guru, you're not a guru, but like a productivity person, Brendan Burchert and Dr. Benjamin Hardy are both really inspiring to me about how to get things done. And last but not least, Rebecca Saltzman and you've been on it before, has a wonderful collection on her Balagan Be Gone Facebook page, and she has some wonderful podcasts of people that will help you plow through until you're ready to sit down with a coach face to face and be coached.
That gives me the fun announcement that, by the way, I was one of her guests on her podcast, and it was an amazing podcast episode, if I may say so myself. We got so deep into how clutter affects our marriage, what to do when one is organized and one is a hoarder, all these different things that come up in marriage with, and the whole thing was started by a question on the Facebook group. So this is definitely something that people want to do, is join that Facebook group. Is amazing. Her podcasts are amazing. She was on my lives before I was on her podcast. I was like one of the lucky, one of the lucky firsts that came and really was interviewed. It's just been so fun. Judith, thank you. I have no words other than thank you. Oh, you're so beautiful.
I know. We're so lucky.
We are. What's amazing? That we have so many viewers and so many people who are going to be viewing this in the replay. And it just feels so nice to have all of these people together. So because our time is almost at its end, what is the main thing that you want to give over to our listeners?
That you were wired by your creator. Yes. You have a divine spark within inside of you. Your spark recognizes other people's sparks. Revel in your individuality. This was a default setting. The ADHD, it's completely workable. He wouldn't give you something bigger, like you can do this. And so I would say that honor your holy spark and love yourself, because you're Hashem's child.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. What I love about my friends is that we bring Hashem into everything, and it just melts all the problems away. Because when you have that connection, I called my my business Connected for Real, because there's that, that connection that's so practical and so for real. And that's just, Baruch Hashem. Yeah, Judith says we're two Rebbetzins. Yes. Nicole wants to know what the link to the test again. So could you just say it? ADD something? What did you say?
ADT Attitude Magazine. If you type in ADD to Tude magazine, and if not, I will just send me a private message and I'll send you the link. Okay. I should have thought of that, but
it's okay. It's okay. Flow, it is what it is. one of the things
Uh,
I had to work on last week was about perfection and the the fact that, the fear of having to face my imperfection, in the future. So this was what was causing me, all these different things. And it was so beautiful. First of all, I got coached by Yael Rivka Jofa, who is amazing. She lives in South Africa. She is incredible. She brought Hashem into it like I bring Hashem into other people's work. So it was so aligned. Her work was perfectly tailored to my needs, which was, momish, beautiful. And it just felt so right when we were saying all the things, finding the root and really finding what it is. The imperfection is the perfection. And then, of course, I remembered that I made a video about this. And you can look for it. It's called I'm Not Perfect. It's on my YouTube channel. And it is, I love my video. I actually went back and listened to it again, and it was like, oh, of course. Sometimes I think I make my own videos for myself, by the way, because you always need these reminders. But it's just so important to see that these things that are hard for you are actually your superpowers in hiding, and you need to tap into them. Don't ignore them. Don't try to push them away. Don't try to, conform and be like everyone else and be like, no, this is bad. Like you were saying, I needed to pull myself back and become less intense. No, learn how to be intense in a way that feels right, that feels aligned, that makes you, who you are, without having to bother anyone else. Yeah, go ahead.
by the way, too much for the first husband, perfect for the second one. All the things, everything, pun fakert, as they say in Yiddish. Everything turned upside down. Everything that I was not the right fit, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that, a lot of times it's less about the husband and more about our process, the things that we had to go through and the journey that we have to find how to accept ourselves the way we are. Because, with the first husband, you were younger, you were juggling children, and you were doing things for the first time. And so it's very difficult. There's a lot of things that you're still figuring out.
And I was living in a fishbowl. Washington, D.C. is very much a fishbowl. So it was a totally different experience. Do you understand what I mean by a fishbowl? Everybody can see what's going on inside your little parsonage. Everybody knows what's going on. They know what brands you're using in your cabinets. They know, that your child came to shul and got mud. Yeah.
Right.
Much different life. Much different.
Judith says there is a really good book, Delivered from Distractions. Cool.
Right. Yeah.
Judith recommends this book, so you guys can go check it out.
Thank you, Judith.
Yes. Okay, so we are going to close soon. We want to thank you for coming. We are so excited that we were able to do this. Thank God for the second time, but no technical difficulties. So that was fun.
Awesome. Thank God.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And this Thursday, we are having another guest with Cheryl Puderman, I think her name is. She is awesome. She will talk to us about trauma. She will talk to us about COVID, how to deal, how to cope, how to get through it, and Be'ezrat Hashem, how to be as resilient as possible and be able to make it into something that is growable and not, whatever that word is that I'm looking for. Yeah. So thank you so much. This was Connected for Real, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining.